And welcome back to another edition of the PH Factor here for the Project Home monthly podcast. I'm really excited this month to delve into another area. So throughout the year, we do some fundraising here at Project Home because we're a nonprofit, but nothing more visible or nothing bigger than this event that we're going to talk with Justin Williams from Community Shares right now about. Justin, thanks for talking to us today about the Big Share.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're really excited about what we've got coming up soon.
So Justin, you are the Community Partnership Director at Community Shares Wisconsin. For people who don't know much about Community Shares, what is it?
So the high-level overview is that Community Shares of Wisconsin is a social justice and environmental justice nonprofit organization. We're actually the nation's oldest social justice fund. This year we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary, so we've been around for quite some time. The best way to think of us is that we're a collective of nonprofits, 70 organizations that, like I said, they're focusing on social justice, environmental justice, and racial justice issues. We do fundraising for our organizations as well as offer trainings and capacity building. The bulk of the fundraising that we've done in the past is through our workplace giving, traditional workplace giving campaigns, where you can, donate a portion of your paycheck to select nonprofits of your choosing. We have a great relationship with the Willie Street Co-op. If anyone's ever there and they ask you to chip, just know that those funds are being used to come to Community Shares as well as our member groups and supporting our work. It's a great relationship that we've had with the co-op for a very long time. And then more recently, in the past 7 years, we've developed the Big Share, which is our 24-hour online giving day that benefits Community Shares and all of our 70 member nonprofits that participate in the day.
So the Big Share started as an online giving event, right, Justin? So why was that so important to start up here in Madison?
Well, Wisconsin didn't have a giving day when we started looking into it 7 years ago. So we were a fresh new thing to the state. There was no social justice focused giving day in the entire country at that time. So we were sort of the entrepreneurs in that respect. What we noticed through workplace giving, as we're seeing, some of the retirements that are happening, and then those employees being replaced with, kids or adults coming out of college. They're coming out with student loan debt. They're trying to, purchase their first homes. So they don't have the capacity building to really fill in the funding gap that's being created by individuals who are, retiring. So we started to see some of our workplace giving sort of plateau, and that's not just Community Shares, that's workplace giving across the country. What we're trying to do with diversifying our funding sources, we saw a giving day as a really great way to ensure that our members are receiving the funding that they need. And the important piece of this is that the funding that they receive through Community Shares and the Big Share is unrestricted funding. I think that's an important piece to note, because a lot of our member groups receive different grants, and while grants are a very important part of fundraising and part of the work that our nonprofits do, those funds have to be used for very specific things and provide very specific outcomes. So the funding that we raise for our members is completely unrestricted. They can use it for any programming. If they want to, purchase a new copier, if they need to, build out a new office, they can use the funding that they receive from us and the Big Share for those causes. When we started the Big Share 7 years ago, it was a big feat to start with. I think the first year we raised just around $200,000. And when we started, we had member groups that didn't have websites. We had member groups that had no social media presence or experience at all. So year one was really focused on sort of, building the capacity of our members to, show them the importance of fundraising through social media and email campaigns as well, and the successes that we can have. Over the 7 years, we've over doubled the amount that we're raising annually through the Big Share. Our members are all on social media now. Many of them are pros at what they do. Every year we sort of amp up what we're doing. So the second year was focused on, this is how you tell the story of your nonprofit through photos on social media, and making sure that, you're engaging with potential donors. And now we've moved up to the point where we're doing, almost 24-hour live streams with our members online for the day of the Big Share. So we've really, while we're teaching our members, we're also learning as an organization about, all the new funding sources and the different algorithms through social media and things like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about everything that goes into something like this. One thing before we go further on the big share, I thought you brought up was so important was the fact that the ability for nonprofits to have some of that support and some of those dollars to use as they need them versus very specific dollars that come in for a specific program or initiative, and that is incredibly important for all nonprofits. I think that's something that sometimes can be overlooked because I think a lot of times in the mind of the donor, in the mind of someone who wants to give money to a nonprofit, they want to know specifically where every penny is going. But nonprofits don't just run themselves. It's not just a magic wand and everything works. You've got to have people that are there, that are committed, that are well paid, that are compensated, to have good people running and managing that money. And I think that's so critical. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and one of the other interesting points about community shares and sort of our structure, not to get too deep into it, but community shares also has our own funding source that we give out to our members called the share. And we've built that in sort of an equitable way so that some of these smaller organizations that aren't receiving as many designations through workplace giving or the big share are then receiving a larger share portion from community shares. And it's sort of that, like I said, that nice equitable way for some of our larger organizations to support some of the more grassroots organizations that we support.
Okay, Justin, let's get into the big share more here and really dive
Sure.
into it. So we kind of covered the basics of what it is, but what is it this year? How can people participate, especially in this kind of new area we find ourselves in with the pandemic and trying to do so much virtually?
Luckily for the big share, we've been doing a lot of it. I mean, it's a social media online driven giving day. So not a ton is having to change for us, which is great because we've got the framework sort of laid out and what we're going to do. We have in the past done a number of in-person events, but we'll be transitioning those to virtual events. So to kick us off, we're kicking off now on the day before. So at 6 p.m. on Monday, March 1st. People can start getting engaged with us right away online. We'll be holding our first ever drag bingo that's going to be hosted by Bianca Lynn Breeze, for anyone who's familiar with the drag community. And Bianca is going to be hosting drag bingo for us. We're going to launch right into it right away with our very first superpower hour. We have different prizes throughout the day. And what the power hours are is it's a split cash prize to participating nonprofits. So the nonprofit that has the most donors and the nonprofit that has the most dollars raised during that specific hour receive half of that power hour prize. So Madison Gas and Electric is going to be sponsoring our kickoff event as well as the first superpower hour. We're really excited. We have a number of groups that I know in the daily emails and conversations and meetings I'm having with our nonprofit members, that there are a lot of them gearing towards this. We're excited about sort of the energy that these sort of prizes create. It also incentivizes donors, because if you give to your favorite nonprofit during these specific times, it helps them not only raise dollars, but it gets the message out because people are sharing about that they're giving to these nonprofits. So it creates a lot of buzz and energy. The official big share is on Tuesday, March 2nd. So the giving day runs from 12 o'clock in the morning to 11:59 at night. We'll be having lots of events throughout the day. We're going to be doing everything from probably having some sort of workout event at 6 o'clock in the morning, bright and early, with a local trainer here in Madison. Just getting people geared up, getting the energy moving right away at the beginning of the day. And again, launching into a power hour so that our donors can, feel more engaged and being able to support nonprofits beyond just dollars, but also sharing on social media about the power hours that are happening. We're going to have hopefully some sort of cocktail making experience. We're going to round out the evening with several different bands, maybe some spoken poetry, and just throughout the day, probably every other hour, we're going to be having just coming live online. The plan right now, as we understand it, and it's an evolving sort of thing, is that we're going to be streaming, 24 hours, coming in online, presenting our power hours with our corporate sponsors who are supporting those, bringing in different nonprofits throughout the day to talk about the work that they've been doing, especially the work that they've been doing in this past year. A lot of us have sort of had to for lack of a better term, and we hear it a lot, pivot in the way that we're sort of providing these resources to the community. And I think it's really important to let the public know about the work that our members have been doing, and all the changes that they've had to make in the past year, but have still been very successful in the work that they're doing.
I think as you talk about that and all the things that have changed in the last year, there are some really big focuses, I think, this year moving forward for a lot of us. So a lot of people in our whole country was awakened again and reminded of some of the things in our society that really need to be improved and really need our attention. And I know for Community Shares this year, 2021, that's a big focus for the organization and its members. So tell us a little bit about how you're utilizing the Big Share as well to kind of help propel some of those organizations who are doing that important work and equity and equality and things like that.
Yeah, so for the Big Share a few years ago, we have another program that we have that's called Inspiring Voices. So these are groups that weren't traditional members of the sense in being a member of Community Shares, and that we annually reach out to 2 or 3 organizations and just try to amplify their message and support them with sort of the fundraising that we traditionally do. A lot of these groups are really important, doing really important work, grassroots activity here locally in Madison. And they don't necessarily have that sort of exposure to the broader community. So we just try to amplify their message through that Inspiring Voices program. Now, what we've been doing for the past maybe 5 years even is inviting those Inspiring Voices groups to participate in the Big Share, and then also become members of Community Shares of Wisconsin. So the Inspiring Voices program is really focused on supporting organizations that are working with other marginalized communities and communities of color in Madison, and then of course are run by people of color. So really trying to amplify that message, bring them into the fold for the Big Share, because there's when we're collectively fundraising together, and if you go to thebigshare.org and you have a favorite nonprofit that you're going to be giving to, you can search for that nonprofit, but then you're also suggested for other nonprofits to take a look into. So it's one of the ways that we can sort of uplift and amplify the message of these other organizations as well.
And just showing people that website here and how easy it is to kind of find and search and look for those organizations that you want to donate to. Or again, specifically, people can make a donation directly to Community Shares through the Big Share. And then what happens with those donations?
So donations that you make to Community Shares help us work on funding for trainings for our member groups. We do all kinds of things, from explaining insurance stuff. We just opened up a 401k for all of our member groups as well. So, all the funding that needs to happen to make those things happen for our members. We do things about compliance issues, about the difference between advocating and being a lobbyist, and making sure that as a 501c3 you're not crossing those lines, because a lot of our groups do work in the advocacy realm, and it's important to understand those things. We, like I said earlier, with the share portion that we do out to our member groups, that so Community Shares does our own fundraising. We always raise enough for our administrative costs, and that's where that share comes into play, is that sort of excess funding that we have, and that's where we then are able to give that out to our member groups as well.
What impact is Community Shares hoping to make with the 2021 Big Share for its members, and then in general the community following them?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a fundraising day, so I have to mention the amount that we're trying to raise. So our goal for the Big Share this year is to raise $500,000 in 24 hours. It's a big goal. The past couple of years we've been hitting around 450, but we feel like as we're having more members participate in the Big Share, adding new member groups, we have 3 new groups that are joining this year. Urban Triage is one of those, Natural Circles of Support, and Inspire Barber College are going to be participating. So the more groups you add, the more money you can raise. So we're feeling pretty good about it. But we also have like the different prizes. We have corporate sponsors who are participating with the Power Hours, a new piece that we added last year that we're going to be adding more of this year are match minutes. For an entire minute, all donations during that minute are matched. We'll have more coming out on that on the Big Share website, so be on the lookout for that.
That sounds fun. And again, that's part of it. I mean, we talk about this being a fundraiser, and a big part of that is it's also fun, right? I mean, that's really what you guys are going for here. Get some engagement, get the community involved, get people sharing on social media,
Mhm.
talking about it. That's all part of the event, right? And that was,
Yeah, and it's not just about dollars. I mean, people can get involved from sharing online, sharing on social media about your favorite nonprofit. A new functionality we have is peer-to-peer fundraising. So if there's a specific group that you want to support, if you go to their page on thebigshare.org, search for that organization, and say fundraise, you can set up your own personal fundraiser with setting up with a goal. You can share that on your social media and tell your story about why you're wanting to support that nonprofit. And it's sort of teaming up with them so that they can, have a good team and, an army behind them, sort of helping them out in their fundraising effort. And it's another great way to get involved. If you don't necessarily have the resources to donate, there are lots of other ways, like I said, sharing on social media or fundraising on behalf of the organization as well.
that's fantastic too. I think what a great way for you to support an organization that you really believe in, to take that little bit extra step and tell other people about it, and then also kind of rally some of them to pull together to make a gift as a team or as a group. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we have is business fundraisers as well. So if there are any business owners or executives out there listening that they're like, oh, we really want to get involved with this, what can we do? A great way to get involved is to set up a business fundraiser page. And if you reach out to us through thebigshare.org, we're more than happy to walk you through that process, where you can invite your employees, your customers, to go to your sort of Giving Day page, where you can either specifically support individual organizations through your messaging or support the Giving Day overall, and invite participants or customers or employees to give through your Giving Day page. And it's fun because if you want to compete with other companies, you can do that. Or if you want to set a goal for your organization, it's a nice way for you to get involved. And it's also has some marketing benefits, and that you can be marketing to your own customers through your own social media, letting them know that you are supporting the community by supporting the Big Share, and then also showing them that they can get involved as well.
I've always said this to different donors that I've worked with, is that many of them, I tell them, you do such amazing stuff and you give back. We just want to let people know that you also do that. And it's okay for you to let them know as well, because it helps us as the nonprofit get the word out and maybe find more donors and more support. So, hey, it's okay for all of us to brag a little bit about the good stuff we're doing and great places we're supporting, especially on a day like this. Okay, so down to the nuts and bolts here, Justin. How do people participate again? Where do they go? When can they give donations? Like, let's cover the big parts right now.
Yeah, so donations are open now. So if you're just chomping at the bit and you really want to get involved right away, you can go donate now to your favorite nonprofit, sort of giving them the leg up so that they're coming into this Giving Day with a lot of momentum. They can say, "Oh, our goal is $10,000 and we've already raised 1,000." That's one way to get involved. You can donate at thebigshare.org. That's where the website is. That's where all of the information about all the participating nonprofits are. You can see the donate button right below the logo there. And then there's a shopping basket out in the upper right-hand corner where you can, as you're adding organizations, if you want to give to multiple, that's where you can view that. So that's one way to get involved. Like I said, just making a donation now. Also, making sure that you're signing up for email communications or following those nonprofits on Facebook is really important. A number of them are going to be sort of strategizing their fundraising around those certain power hours. So while it's important, to give, but if you have the time to sort of do a little research and find out, oh, they want me to donate between 11 a.m. and noon because they're going to go for that specific power hour. That's another fun way that you can sort of get involved by supporting your organization through dollars, but also helping them win prizes as well. The other thing that we had talked about is if you go to a specific nonprofit page, if you went to Project Home's page, there is the option to hit the fundraise button there, and that's where you would be able to fundraise for that specific organization by setting up your own personal, what we call peer-to-peer fundraiser, and that would support that direct nonprofit. Other things you can do are just making sure that you're sharing on social media. On Tuesday, March 2nd, we're going to be blasting on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. So if you're able to just share a story about the nonprofit that you want to support, whether that's financially or just sort of, creating that spider web effect that we call on social media, where by you talking to your network and people sharing your story, it just sort of amplifies that message and reaches a much larger, broader audience. As the Big Share has been growing throughout the years, we focus it mainly on Wisconsin, but we're receiving donations literally across the world. We get donations every year from Europe and everywhere. People have ties to Wisconsin and they understand the important work that a lot of the nonprofits are doing around social justice and environmental justice issues here, and they want to support, and it's great.
And you've got the countdown here, Justin, so we all know it's Tuesday, March 2nd, but we've got the running clock on the website. You can find right there at thebigshare.org. One other thing, I'm going to hide us for a second so people can see this, but such an easy way for people to take that, make a donation, and then share on social media by just clicking on Facebook here, Twitter. You can just share things out right away, right from your donation site. So if you go in and donate, very simple for you to do that. And tell people about it. Be like, hey, I donated today. Maybe you should think about it too. Here's a great organization. Those icons, just look for them right after you make your donation. It's right there and very simple and easily set up.
Yep, it prompts you right away after you make a donation to share that out on social, and you can adapt it to your own language if you want to talk about why you're giving to that specific place, and it's a great way to get involved.
All right, Justin, thanks so much for your time and everything that you do for the Big Share and everyone at Community Shares over there. What a great event. 7th year, we're going for 500,000 this year. We hope we get there.
We're going to get there. Yeah.
All right, that's Justin Williams, everybody, from Community Shares of Wisconsin. Thanks so much. We'll catch you for another edition of the PH Factor next month.